from fighters criticizing the whole thing to actual scientists calling it harmful. Dana White's latest Power Slap League has been very controversial, but White has no plans of stopping anytime soon. In fact, he thinks Power Slap is a winner. The UFC Supremo just made sure everyone knows that he's got things under control. In addition, the United States government. After all, White is no stranger to producing reality sports shows. If you're an OG fan, you probably remember The Ultimate Surfer, and what a disaster that was. Despite all the criticism, White is confident that everything is gonna go great with the Power Slap League, especially because he's in control this time.
What we're really excited to see in the first round of the fights was the rematch.
People think that Power Slap won't last, just like that Surfer show didn't. I don't blame them though, especially because they have a lot of reasons to think so.
All right, guys, this is it. Joining us today is the CEO of the World Surf League.
Power Slap on TBS has garnered a lot of attention, mainly because the people who are competing in it are just defenseless. It definitely doesn't help Dana's case that a lot of the competitors are showing signs of concussions. At the Super Bowl Media Row, nothing could stop Dana White from raving about his latest Power Slap League. In fact, he believes in it so much that he somehow got the Nevada Gaming Commission to make it a sanctioned sport. It's clear that the current president of the UFC is super transparent about the show. He was even comfortable enough to talk about why the release of the show was delayed. White called the Power Slap League a work in progress.
Seriously, and have to make sure that these fighters are always competing on an even playing field.
He's very confident about the success of Power Slap because despite his New Year's Eve incident, there were quite a few people who tuned in. It's pretty impossible to forget everything that went down when TMZ released the video of Dana White slapping his wife at a Mexican nightclub. The whole world attacked him.
Obtained and published by TMZ shows White grabbing his wife's wrist as she tries to walk away and Anne slapping him, then White.
This resulted in the show being pushed to January 17th, and that's the worst consequence that White suffered for his actions. Soon after, though, he owned up to his mistakes and admitted that the timing of the league is ironic and horrible at the same time. In fact, White just thinks we need to give it some time. He admitted that Power Slap is new, and he's trying to figure out how to navigate this new league. Despite everything, the whole thing is going really well, and now the first 4 episodes have somehow managed to get the attention of 275,000 people. That is a huge number for something like this, especially because it's a new league. Even though Power Slap League still doesn't have everything figured out, Dana White is confident that it's a hit and a winner. And well, he's got the evidence to back it up as well. Apparently, the first episode of the show has all the international numbers for Rumble, and they're astronomical. Viewers are pouring in to watch this new violent league from the craziest places, like Russia and Poland. Not that the president of the UFC is surprised though. He said he always knew it would be big. Now though, viewers are increasing, and people from the UK, Canada, and even Indonesia are tuning in. That isn't the only proof Dana has that Power Slap League is a success. He even talked about the social media metrics. Power Slap is a hit there too, with their TikTok account having over 1.9 million followers. That's more than AWE, and White is probably taking this as a good sign. The success of this show isn't enough to silence the critics though. And if you didn't know already, this entire sport basically just focuses on slapping areas of the head.
I am pretty sure that every fighter in the house wanted to see Azael lose, but he stood there, took Emmanuel's best shots, even a clubbing foul, and
that's not even the worst part though, because contestants can't even defend themselves. Competitors aren't really allowed to move at all. They can't even raise their shoulders and have to keep their hands behind their backs the whole time. The show has more than a few episodes out already, and I honestly don't get how this counts as entertainment for some people. Some contestants can be seen twitching on the ground after being slapped unconscious. After being severely concussed, one fighter even crashed into the podium. Despite all this, you can imagine how crazy it is if people seem to enjoy this stuff. It only makes sense why there are so many critics talking about the show. Power Slap is the most recent addition to the growing list of violent contests, which also includes wrestling, boxing, and cage fighting. The arguments against violent sports are well rehearsed, but those who promote them clearly ignore them. The short-term consequences are obvious: concussions.
he delivered a monstrous knockout in his fight against Mike Webster. What's interesting, though, is that Azael seems to have the advantage.
Blows to the head or violent shaking of the head can cause headaches, memory loss, brain fog, and confusion in the short term. Things can be worse for contestants in the long term, though. They're much more dangerous. It's definitely not fair to assume that power slap contestants are unharmed just because they didn't get a concussion. Even if amateur boxers pass cognitive tests, repeated head trauma can cause nerve cell injury. This is also difficult to detect because it can only be detected by measuring the leaking of brain neurofilaments into cerebrospinal fluid. And that's a lot of science terms. Power slapping, in which the unprotected head is the only target of the blow, is likely to cause similar low-level brain damage. Now, please be patient with me as I explain all these unfamiliar terms about brain injury diseases, as well as neurodegeneration and dementia. When it comes to sports like boxing and probably power slapping, the injuries only make themselves visible after a long time, maybe even after the athletes retire. A quick hit delivered at a certain angle can cause torsional forces to the neck and head, injuring the arteries that supply blood to the brain. Former heavyweight Brendan Schaub talked about how he's not happy about this sport being associated with the UFC. He tweeted about the whole thing and said that it's the stupidest thing that he's ever seen. He even claimed that the organization's association with the UFC has set it back 10 years. Schaub still thinks it's very entertaining though, and bets that it won't be around in a year. Matt Frivola also agrees and says that it's insane how much money went into legitimizing this sport. Matt says that all the money that went into this could have gone to the UFC, and that would have been better. Ben Askren, a former fighter, even said that he doesn't see the attraction to power slapping. Apparently, you have to be sadistic to like it. All this criticism is just increasing day by day. Ariel Helwani, an MMA journalist, even said that the whole thing should just be dissolved. But nobody's listening to that though. Even regular boxing fans don't agree with this. And after every episode that aired, they stormed Twitter to call White the nastiest names for allowing this to happen. But all this backlash is something that Dana White had anticipated. He said so himself. Lorenzo and Frank Fertitta teamed up with Dana White for Power Slap and are funding it too. So they've all been prepared for this.
Amazing, bro.
Okay.
I feel like I can do either or.
I don't want you warming up with the right at all. If you decide to switch to it, just do it in the match. Don't warm up with it.
Okay, I won't. It's official. I have it by.
Dana White apparently talked about all of this right before Power Slap even aired, so they knew it was coming. Apparently, all of the things people are saying are just the same as what they said about the UFC in its early days. That's how they know it's a hit. One thing's for sure though, Dana White is not bending despite the criticism. He's determined to make this work, and with that, that's all I have for updates on Power Slap for today.
It was a good match. Azael took all the hits, and he was giving them right back to Emmanuel.
Emmanuel had a lot.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.